every athlete, every person, every human being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared, good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is gonna get called.
I'm not coming back.
EMIY Apparel. Encourage me. I'm young.
Calvin T. Mann, leading EMIY, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIY TV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Put Your Family First Podcast, award-winning podcast. Right, and today is a special day, and we're looking forward to this day. Hello, Heather and Monique.
Hello.
Hey.
We got the ladies in the building. We got our special guest, Brother Bert Johnson, in the building.
Hey.
And so today, you have an opportunity for you to call in. Our call-in number will be posted. Mm-hmm. But today, we are going to get into a good conversation about what families need to know in politics and voting, right? Why families need to be paying attention and should be registered and be vigilant is the word I guess I should use in this climate. For any time there's a first time for anything to happen, we have to be vigilant for the people. The opportunity that is at hand, or the other way, depending on how you look at this, I'm saying there should be some information for each one of you families to understand how important your vote is. And so before I really get into that, Heather, would you like to say something?
Oh, absolutely. I always have something to say. Well, I'm excited about the conversation today. I'm aware that politics is not always in timing with various conversations. But we were going to frame this because I think, and as Calvin mentioned, I know that having conversation through the lens of family is a little bit different. Most of the times when we talk about politics, we're always talking about an individual, either you as an individual voter or a particular candidate running for office. But I want us to use this lens today about looking at it through the lens of family, because that's super important in the age and time that we're in, and this season ultimately, because family is what needs to be restored, and family is the center of everything. And so the better we are with that, the more we know, the better the conversation. So join us in this conversation today, because I'm excited to hear the knowledge and the experience and the wisdom Bert is going to bring to us to have this conversation with families.
That's a heavy lift. Lots of responsibility. Lots of responsibility.
It's your lived experience. That's what's important. Your lived experience.
It is important, and it was the first person I could think of for us as we were transitioning into our next level for our podcast, that we wanted to be intentful with the guests and the information going forward to continue to raise the awareness on why we call it Put Your Family First, right? Because that's, for many of us, that's our first ministry, and a lot of times we miss that. And so with the climate being the way it is around voting, a lot of people have bought into a lot of things, and so we're here, there, everywhere. I wanted to have a conversation with, I know somebody who can articulate right, better than I can articulate, because my passion comes through when I see people, kind of buying into the wrong thing. So, with that being said, Bert, how you doing, brother?
Man, I am fantastic. It's another beautiful day in paradise. I'm glad to be here with you and Heather. And this is an important conversation. We're friends, we're colleagues, we're brothers, but we're also warriors in a probably lifelong battle at this point for the hearts, the minds, the energy, the soul of our people, such that we can permeate all the areas where we want to be, right? The family is first, obviously. God is first, family second, your vocation third. But then there's all the stuff that we put our energy to try to make things better for people. So it's a heavy lift. We got a real important job to do. This is a real good exercise for this election to get more practiced and rehearsed on what it is that we need to do. So I'm excited about the conversation. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
No doubts. Right. So I guess we'll jump right in. I don't want to officially just block you out. You know what I mean? Right. But, Bert, to give a little bit background, I think a lot of people, even when you were doing your work, a lot of people don't know who you are and how loyal you are to the people.
Yeah. And that's for good reason that a lot of people don't know. I think there are factions across the community, across the country, that would have us not know what we need to know in order to get ahead on an everyday basis. If you're a nonprofit, you could not know that there are particular grants out there that your organization can take advantage of to provide greater access for the people you want to serve. If you are a teacher, you may not know the latest and greatest, because it's not furnished by your school district, in technology and software and things that you could use in the classroom that would make the children's experience that much richer. So there are many people who it's in their best interest for black people. We're going to talk about black people, where black people are today. It's in their best interest to not have black people have the access that they deserve.
Right.
Black people pay taxes. Black people work. Black people spend money into the community. Black people hold communities up. Black people save economies. Black people win elections. Black people windfall all sorts of important things across this country. But there are still folks who say we need to suppress the vote.
Right.
So I spent nearly 20 years in the Michigan legislature. I started as a staff member. I served as State Representative Bill McConico, who's now the Chief Judge of the 36th District Court. He was a good friend of mine coming out of high school. Then I had the unique opportunity to run for office, which is a calling, right? You have to, not a calling like that of preachers and that kind of thing, but when I say a calling, it's got to be burning in your belly. I want to fix the community in which I live.
Right.
I think I can leave it better than I found it. So I had the unique opportunity to run for office. I ran and won in the State House. 4 short years later, I ran and won in the State Senate. I stayed there for 8 years. And, there was a period of maybe 12 to 14, 15 years where if it was big, if it was bold, if it was important, if it was Detroit, it had to stop by my office to get my sign off, to get my check off. I used to do 77 community meetings a month. Wow. I devoted a heavy part of my life. I had to always thank my family for giving me that permission to be that personal with this business. But this is a very important conversation you're getting ready to have.
Good, because I wanted to have it, brother.
I know you do.
I want to start a little personal and then kind of branch out from there. So I did pull some information about your bio, and what I always admire is that, your family is a part of, I want to say your ministry, but a part of your journey in a real way.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about some of, what have you learned about your family, and what was drawn out in your family through going through this journey and just being in politics?
There's a particular resilience you better have to be in this business, because many are called, the chosen are few. When you get there, it's not what you think there should be. Right? We oftentimes in the state legislative system say that there are Democrats and Republicans and then Detroiters. Right? So you understand the island that you oftentimes find yourself on that is separate and distinct from the other two major parties. What is traditionally great for black folks in Detroit is going to be spectacular for people across the state. But that's not the trickle up theory that folks believe in. My family is a family that's been here for better than 130 years in Detroit. So we believe we are Detroit. We've seen the best of Detroit, the worst of Detroit. We'll be here when Detroit restores completely, when black folks have a better seat at the head of the table. But I learned that my family's incredibly resilient. My kids are extremely durable. My parents are enormously valuable. And the people that I call family are people who have been kind enough to allow little Bert to just run out into the middle of the street and do this thing. He came back one day and said it was a valuable thing to do. They supported me. When the tables turned on me and when people on the inside started pushing for me to be in trouble with certain authorities and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole separate podcast, probably. It was my family that told me, and this is for anybody who's listening. My dad asked me once, he said, well, Bert, when you got indicted and you ended up leaving your post in politics and effectively turning in your career, fighting for our people. I mean, fighting for our people. He said, the reason that happened to you is because you strayed too far away from the nest. And I thought about it. I said, what do you mean, Daddy? He said, well, you strayed too far away from the people who, if we wanted to reach out to you because we love you, we respect you, we'll protect you, we couldn't put our hands on you. And when he said that, it resonated. It was kind of like hit me dead in the forehead. But I learned that I don't care what it is you're doing. You better take the people who are going to see you safely through that process. You better take them with you. If you got a wife, you better take her. If you got a husband, you better take him. If you've got people who would stand in the gap for you and stop a bullet, take them.
You got to take them.
You're going to need them.
Yeah.
More than you could ever imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to, that's the whole thing about not switching up that circle when you got, that's one of the things that we have to pride ourselves. I know I pride myself on the one thing I can give you is loyalty.
Absolutely.
And because of that, I'm sure that is the one thing that oftentimes in the heat of a battle, that's what you're missing.
Absolutely.
So and so that was a great point that you just made, because you have to keep them. And so it's funny because you might have to worry about when you go to, they not reaching for you, right? So that's why you need that.
Listen,
that's why you need the reachers,
I
brother.
learned there's not some figurative or literal white guy on a pale horse,
right,
with a sheet on his head running you down.
Right.
That's not the guy you got to worry about. It's the guy that's been on your hip for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's the guy you treated like a brother. It's the guy whose life you saved. It's the guy who, and so, look, I was 45 years old. I was early 40s when I learned that jealousy is like carbon monoxide poison.
Yeah.
It's odorless, tasteless, colorless. You only know you've been poisoned when you wake up dead.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they often show you signs.
Yeah, they do show you signs.
They show you signs.
I got to give it to the process. I showed market. I just didn't see it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I couldn't smell it. I couldn't touch it. I couldn't taste it. But it was there. Look, I hold no enmity in my heart. To be mad, to be upset, to be a victim,
right,
is way overrated.
Yeah.
It is far better to be liberated and free.
Oh, no question.
People are people, and people do things every day that they wish they didn't do. We learn from them, some don't. It's just a part of life. And I guess the last thing I'll say on it is, I just leave this question out there for people to ponder for their own lives. What punishments of God are not blessings? You can't, right? Like I can't be happy, Cal, that I'm here today with you and Heather. I cannot be happy about the sun and the car I drove and the weather and sitting here with you in the fresh water. And I can't be happy about those things, but be mad about other things prior to this, but that brought this day forward.
Right.
What punishments of God are not blessings?
Right.
That's insightful.
You got to be thankful for all of it. God was in the church when you reformed, and He was in the crack house when you were doing your thing too.
Right there, sitting next to you.
Right there.
Like Smokey.
Come on. So, it all tracks at a point. And, you got to make it make sense, and you got to be ready to fight the next battle.
Yeah. And that brings us to this conversation, right? Because I think, again, if we take it from the basis of what we see, hear, read, we also learned that two things can be right at the same time.
Yes.
Two things can be wrong.
Yes.
So what is the one thing, right? Because, I like to share this story, but I won't. All I know is you reaping what you sow is real.
Yeah, all day.
All day, right?
Absolutely.
So you can't get by it. You can't run through it. You got to go through your season.
That's right.
And a lot of people think that they can escape and not go through their season. How you treat somebody, how you deny somebody, how you forget somebody, all those things come into play.
Yes.
But in this process right now, in the climate that we're in, what is the one thing to start this conversation that every voter should know?
Let's do away with this concept that we should not talk about religion and or politics. You better talk about. You think the Jews don't talk about politics? You think the Koreans, the Arabs, the Chaldeans, folks who consider themselves to be white, that's an American construct. You think those people aren't talking about politics? You think they're not talking about positioning in the U.S. Congress? You think they're not talking about what this person saying they want to be president, what their positions are on things that they care about? There are 8 million Jews in America, in the world for that matter. Having said that, you think those 8 million people aren't talking about their stuff politically? You better talk about politics. You better figure out the right religion. Because if you don't, you're going to be sitting on the sideline saying, well, how'd they get all of that, and how are they in the game, and how are they running this, and why do they have all control of that? And you have nothing.
Right, because you're constantly explaining to your people, hey, hold the vote. You know your vote don't count. We was having a conversation, and brothers, I say, well, let me ask you this question, right?
Yeah.
When we say that the voting don't work, I say, well, then how did you get these little things in place?
Works.
We know voting works.
It works.
And we know that is at a disadvantage mindset for you to hold your vote. And it just doesn't, it's not feasible. So my next question is, should, in this process that is taking place right now, let's talk about the women, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is this so important for women right now?
So, I've been talking to brothers, and Cal, Heather, I have decided certain people I can't give energy to on this conversation anymore. Right. But for black women, this is so important for black men. It's this black woman, figuratively, as a collective. It's their turn. They're out in the middle. Right. It is our job as men.
Yes, sir.
Black men.
Yes, sir.
To stand by them, behind them, and just look pretty.
Yes, sir.
Be quiet, support them, just stand there and look pretty. Give them your money, your time, your physical strength, all that stuff. It's important because black women historically in America, and this is where the seed really gets divided for me with people, particularly brothers who talk this foolishness. Black women have held our community together since the very beginning. The credit that we call good credit or bad credit, that was born in a woman's womb, a black woman's womb, because they could auction her and they would say, you can get 15, this wench will give you 15 children. If you give me these dollars, she's 13 years old, you can start her to having babies immediately. Credit was born in a black woman's womb. Insurance, the first thing insured was a black woman. So this is a moment in black male history for us to deliver on the promise that is, your word, being loyal in a way that maybe isn't as comfortable as we'd like it to be. Because black men just get to do what we want to do. If a black man leaves home, the black woman takes care of the kids, usually. If a black man messes up and he's in court, it's usually his black mother who is there to support him, right? If you are dragged to church, it's usually by a black woman. If you get popped in the back of the head for running your mouth in the pew too much, she says, shut up, eat this peppermint, and be quiet. That's a black woman, right? If you get up in the morning on Saturday and you smell a particular smell just wafting on the wind. He said, "Oh my God, that's the potatoes and the onions and the peppers and the grit. That's a black woman usually doing that, right?" So my point is, black women deserve us to just be there for them without even asking us. So this notion that they're a brother, I don't trust the sister. First, you don't even know the sister. Stop. Don't do that. You don't know her.
Right.
What are you judging? You're judging something that you're ignorant about. Or I don't trust her or her policies. Do you think you can climb to the top of the United States of America to make rules and you won't be, as a black man or black woman, involving yourself in an already corrupt system that you're going to try to grab by the bullhorns?
And there's no corruption.
Come on. It's impossible.
It's impossible.
So to impugn our people and act as though we shouldn't be trying to be president of the United States?
Well, Bert, it's funny. I thought in 2016, I said in 2016, I was all over everything. Like, all right, ladies, let's go. You know what I mean? The issue in watching these men, you got to understand, and me and you understand this. A lot of these men were on the hip, despising, being spoiled. Taken care of.
Sure.
She tied his shoes. She put on his pants too long.
Way too long.
She kept that milk in his mouth, right?
That's right.
And because she was going through those processes and dragging along, here he was given everything, so he's spoiled.
Right.
And so now that he's spoiled, he got a little bit of information. The definition of ignorant is not knowing. So in that process, he got a little bit of juice. And so he got out and learned some things. I often ask a number of people who have been having this conversation, because this has happened to be my favorite thing, what's your last book? Right? That tells you...
Heck of a question.
That tells you everything, right?
Heck of a question.
That tells you everything when it comes to where you at knowledge base wise, what you're thinking about, what you're talking about. I was talking to a young man the other day. He was like, "Oh man, it's Trump, why they Greg was detailing my car." Right?
Yep.
And so the young man was talking, and I was talking to him. I said, "How old are you?" He was 26. He was built like he was 14.
Okay.
So where did you spend your time? Video games. So when was the last book you read? When I hit him, he went all the way back to.
Something like
the first one was the Bible.
No, don't do that. Yeah, don't do that.
I said, when did you do that? Right? Then he said, man, probably since high school.
Yeah. See.
So you're 26, right? So you don't have, and that's the thing that we're pushing. You don't have enough in your library. Your own personal spiritual being library. So you have to be able to listen and discern. And what has happened to those men that you're talking about is this is their only opportunity to be chauvinistic.
Yeah, come on. Woo, Cal. Now see, this morning I was thinking about this conversation. A similar thought hit me in my gut. Because a lot of times when you start this conversation and you say to young man, you say to grown man, old men, and then they give you some of that ugly feedback, you say, well, no, wait a minute. I didn't ask you to bring your personal experiences, shortcomings, and baggage and trauma into this discussion.
Yes.
I'm talking about supporting our people. I mean, let's just be plain. This guy that she's running against is going to say a whole lot of stuff. And this just goes back to the block. You going to let that white boy say all these ugly things about that sister? You ain't going to deal with him? You ain't going to shut him up? No, because see, where we came from, you got to shut that up, dude. You don't get to do that. Not here. So the point is, you've got to give her the same opportunity you would demand for yourself. I don't know what she gonna do when she get there. I'm gonna put her there to see, though.
Yeah. She gonna get that opportunity.
She gonna get that opportunity.
No question.
Right? And if she turns up and goes great, I hit the lottery.
Right.
If it goes another way, no harm, no foul. I'm gonna support the next black man and the next black woman.
Yeah.
Especially the ones who can win.
Yeah.
Unless they just prove that they can't lead
Well,
us,
one thing's for sure and clear, that we have to be clear in this conversation for families and people and those that are watching. She couldn't run if she had 34 felonies. Had she raped men and been accused of raping men, she couldn't run. She wouldn't have got to the front door.
if she had been accused over her career of being a fraudster,
Right. She couldn't.
if she owned one house that she was a slumlord over, she couldn't run.
She couldn't run.
She would have never been able to get to the convention nomination table
At all. And she couldn't have grabbed him in the penis.
Come on. And so the only people being tough on her, really tough on her, they kind of look like you and I.
Hey, man.
Which is
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
You don't have nothing. And part of it, going into the voting and understand, like, and we'll get into that, what's going on locally. But part of that is that whole dynamic is she came to the table as a family, with a family. She's helped so many kids and children and women. The story of where she grabbed the girl who was savagely raped by multiple people, and she grabbed her face, humanized her. Black women in the United States had the highest unsolved rape kits in this nation.
Yeah.
Black and brown
11,000 of
women,
them out of Detroit.
right? So black and brown women have the infant mortalities. The black and brown women are dying a year after giving birth to a child, and she executed a bill for women's health.
She's talking about fibroid tumors, right? She's talking about this thing that, I mean, there are two women sitting here. You could probably do the show without Heather. You probably should not attempt to do it without Heather. You could do it without the woman who's engineering the show right now. You probably should not do that. Why? Because you would only be seeking to replace them with men who, let's face it, we're smart, we're good creatures, we're the whole nine. But, sometimes we can be dense.
Yeah.
We need the effective, efficient assistance of that helpmate that God put next to us.
Yes.
To walk us through this thing. Do you know how many times a black woman saves a man from doing the wrong thing?
I can tell you,
Right, that was this morning, right?
Yeah, I can tell you.
Take that turn.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going down that street. Well, you can go down that street, but the map says, I don't need no map.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we're going to be late, because you don't need no map.
All right.
So you got to put, pride is devil. You got to put the pride down and just recognize this is a moment to be counted amongst those who can be counted on.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got to thank Donald Trump for one thing. We owe him a debt of gratitude. He has been so ugly, so cantankerous, so rancorous, so vile, so undisciplined, that the moment a black woman shows up, everything that comes with them, the nurturing, the unyielding, uncompromised, unconditional love, and the intellect, I got to thank him for it, because it just shows Kamala off in some spectacular ways. And look, this ain't even about Kamala. She's the vessel. She's the thing. This ain't about her, man. This is about what are black men gonna do across this country. Finally, right? I just decided today I can't keep talking and trying to bring up people who don't want to be brought up. So I played a numbers game, just like when I ran for office. I'm looking for people on the block that actually vote, that I can see demonstrated over election cycles. Okay, the man's vote. You're on this list. I'm stopping at your house. I might not stop at your neighbor's house because they don't vote. But you say, no, look at their manicured lawn and the cars, and they work for the big three, and the kids go to school. Yes, but I hear you. They don't vote.
They don't vote.
I'm talking to the mans because they vote.
They vote.
If I talk to them, I might be able to influence them.
And they have the list.
And they got the list. So,
And they know who's voting.
come on, every day.
And they know who's not voting.
Every day of the
And
week.
they count on you not voting.
Yes.
How important is that, though? How important is it for people to know, one, that you have already established a voting history?
It is as important as all the other formative things. In fact, we're on this agrarian system for education delivery in the country. So, we are still learning things that J.D. Rockefeller wanted us to learn, to just become employees. That's all he wanted. He wanted a country of employees. And so the voting, though, is a part of all the stuff we learned growing up. But systematically speaking, it is a fundamental way to change the game. Like, Look, why do you think they kept women and blacks from voting? Because they knew if we got involved in it, we could change stuff and put our own people at the table. That ought to be enough of an education for anybody walking around saying, man, hold the vote. I'm not voting this time. That don't matter. That is the dumbest poppycock garbage sugar honey iced tea I ever heard. Right? If you're not voting, you're just saying, hey, I'm not participating in whatever happens after this. I'm all right with it. I'm not all right with it.
Right. I'm not all right.
I'm just not all right with it.
No.
It's tough. It's really tough, right? Because you got to understand that the number of men that we talk to, they're very, very. It's in the people. It's very, very whiny. It's suspect to the T that you see. You see the women and being forced into that position, but it's very, very suspect. Like the whining is, and then when you see someone come in and really want to have a conversation about it. The level of security in the conversation, they know how to have a conversation. We might disagree. I'm just not with that whole dynamic. She's not this, she's not that, right? The whole nine. She doesn't, right? And you got an auntie sitting across from you, say she got Indian hair, and she been saying that for 20 years, right? And you got a sister who paid $250 a pack to put Indian hair in her head, but here we come, she not black, right? And so I wanted to get to this, right? Locally, what are the important races right now in Michigan?
Well, if we were doing a civics class and we were talking about who do you vote for first? I've been a state rep. I've been a senator. We're talking about a presidential election. We know about U.S. senators. We know about folks who serve in the Congress. Some of us.
Know?
Not enough.
Okay.
But the first most important thing you better pay attention to is the judges you're voting for. It's the judges, because they're going to serve in 6-year batches.
Terms, yep.
6-year terms. And unless you get caught with a dead body in the trunk, and it's got to be like Jimmy Hoffa, you're not getting dismissed from the bench. So people will hear that sometimes and say, well, I'm not ever going to commit a crime. Well, I didn't say anything about committing crime, but there is civil court, there's traffic court, there's divorce court, there's we're all going to have to go see estate probate court at some point. There's criminal court. You're going to see one of these judges. You better make sure it's the right person out of your community who understands the quality of your black life and can administer justice and render decisions with compassion.
Right.
So it's the judges first, right? After that, we're talking about the school board, because these people are going to make rules that serve or do not serve your children's interests for the better part of 18 years. They got to think about just digging your claws into something and never letting it go. 18 years is a long time. In our country, we call that the entirety of your childhood.
Yeah.
So I've been a state rep and a state senator. Notice I haven't said those people yet. So it's your judges, then it's your school board. The next people you better pay attention to are none other than your common council, your city council. Because these people will make all the rules for where you will drive and walk and recreate and pray and play and work. You're probably doing all that in your one little community. You need to know, don't play the radio at this volume, because you're going to get a ticket. You need it. A great example is we just had a terrible tragedy with these, what they call, I didn't even know what they were when they said them, but these illegal house parties, right? You got to now have a permit to have a block party.
Wow.
You got to go down and see the police, go down and talk to council, go down and get a permit so that you can have a block party. And then certain people cannot come to the party, right? Yeah, they're like all these rules, and it just kind of sprang up out of nowhere. So an ex-lawmaker, when I hear that stuff, I'm like, well, wait a minute. When did they debate this, and who put that policy out, and when did it become law? Notice I haven't said state rep or state senate yet. I had a very important job. It wasn't as important as those 3 jobs. Then the next level of people you should get to looking at is your state board of education, the people who make those school rules for you.
Sure.
State. Then your state legislature. The point is, you started out with a strong point. All politics are local. You better pay attention to those, because those are the issues that are going to impact your life first and foremost.
Yes. Very insightful. Very insightful.
Man, So, since we're here, who looks like they're a heavy hitter for
mayor of the city of Detroit?
Yeah.
It's some people would like to say, to get out to answering the question, oh, it's early. It's not really early. The moment we finish this general election in 70 or so days, it'll be time to start talking about the next mayor of the city of Detroit. And my intel is that Mike Duggan will move on, and he will not run for re-election. And then there will be a bunch of folks who believe that they're best suited to run for mayor in the city of Detroit. Now, listen. I am not one of those people who says, well, Heather, come on, you can't run. I mean, come on, Heather. You and I know you can't run. I would never do that. Because it's very probable, and it's sometimes improbable, that you could make this run and some things could just happen. When Barack Obama ran, one of the people he ran against, he died. Another dude got indicted. So, it can be said that he kind of got on the avenue and all the lights turned green for him. Mm-hmm. So I can't tell somebody they should not run. What I can do is I can apply what I believe is a properly thought out metric to understand who has what it takes to run. Mm. So think about this. You're in a Coney Island one day and somebody comes in who you know very well, and they are on the city council, or they're this or they're that, and you hear them doing a meeting about running for mayor. If you walked over and asked them, have you taken the drive? What drive? From 5 Points to Kelly Road. 5 Points to Kelly Road. Yeah, 5 points. What's 5 points? Yeah, you can't be mayor. 5 Points to Kelly Road is from the east to the west side. Have you gotten in your car, rolled down the window, 6 a.m. in the morning with a cup of coffee and a cigar, every window down, no music on, and just driven all the way across Detroit? Some streets you got to stop, get out, and smell it and taste it. Some streets look like the backwoods of Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Mayors never go on their blocks because there's only 4 or 5 votes on those blocks. Have you taken a drive? Question number 1. Question number 2, have you ever made a payroll? You ever owned a company and made a payroll? Because you got to make a great big one called City of Detroit. Can you read a stock page? Do you know what the opening bell sounds like on Wall Street? Well, why would I need to know that? Because Detroit is actually a multi-billion-dollar company that the CEO of actually needs to have some experience with those things. You need to understand what's happening in Hong Kong before you can suggest what's going to happen in Detroit. That's question number 2. Question number 3. Where in your professional life have you demonstrated a propensity deep enough that if you are granted the opportunity to be mayor, that you could really work it out? Just give us the past performance. Like the one when it comes to your organization. When they say, well, what have you all done? Well, I'm glad you asked the question. How long you got? I got about 67 pages here of past performance I can talk to you about.
All right.
Show me where you've done what you're attempting to do. And these are all very legitimate questions.
Absolutely.
That many candidates don't ask. Because sometimes they don't have to. If you got a lot of money, if you got a big name, if you're popular, you might be electable. You shouldn't be, but it's the only place politics is, the only place where you don't really have to have a resume that supports the job you want to do.
Right.
So if Calvin runs on the street and says, well, I'm Calvin Man, and my slogan is my man, and you get everybody just across the Detroit say, that's my man, that's my man, that's my man. Well, Cal, you might be getting ready to be. We got to be careful with that.
Right.
No disrespect to Martha Reeves. I love her dearly. She's a good friend. But Martha was ill-equipped for what was to come when she became a council person.
Right.
And she took a huge professional hit. People just ridiculed her. She's the nicest woman you ever want to meet. But you kind of got to know a lot about these jobs. They're very important. So to answer your question more directly, I don't think anybody has a complete leg up. I think Mary Sheffield is going to show very well. I think Santil Jenkins is going to show very well.
Yes, she will.
I think I've heard a lot of names of people that know would never do it. Dennis Archer Jr. comes to mind. There are others who I think, I won't call them second or third tier, but they're in the mix. Coleman Young would love to do it. I'm not sure that he will. Fred Durhal would love to do it. I'm not sure he will. And you look, there are probably some people that you and I haven't thought of yet that will show up. What you hope, though, what I always hope, whenever I was on the ballot, I wanted to be on the ballot with people that if I couldn't win, I hoped that there was someone amongst that group that I would say, I want that person.
Yeah.
If it can't be me, I'm really happy to have that person.
Yeah, for the position at this particular point, you don't. What we don't need is another catastrophe.
No, can't afford that, Cap.
Can't afford that, right?
Can't afford it.
What we don't need in that position is someone who doesn't know how to team build growth.
Right.
Like, we don't need this just about me's.
Right. Oh no, that time has come and gone.
Yeah, we don't need that, right? And you got to have some type of loyalty to the people, because the business sector is going to hold you to some things as well.
Yeah.
And so you got to be able to handle that and that conversation. And then, what is your vision? Mm-hmm. Because your vision, you could talk a vision and never live the vision.
Sure.
And that's a very significant piece going forward into today's in that opportunity, right? That's a real opportunity, like real big, right? And because the standard got reshaped, regardless of how people feel, Duggan reshaped the standard.
No doubt. Truth is, if he ran for one more term, served just one more 4-year term, there are many people who would be calling him the greatest mayor Detroit's ever known.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're into these ultra facetious goat.
Yeah. Goat
conversations. We do that all the time.
Yeah. He's the goat.
But here's the thing about an executive, which are your presidents, your governors, your mayors, your county execs. Those folk are not amongst the most accountable of us all. Right? If you're a legislator, we're the most accountable people that there are. Here's why. If I go into Grosse Pointe tonight and I do a community meeting, and the people say, now Grosse Pointers don't need a state senator. They got money, so they don't need a state. They need me to open up the Memorial Day parade. They want me to be the grand marshal, right? They want me to come read to the kids during March's Read Month. But they don't need a state senator. But if I go to that meeting, someone may say to me, Bert, there's been a rash of break-ins over on a particular block that borders the city of Detroit. We got a problem with it. We've tried to talk to the mayor. We've tried to talk to the police chief in that city. What are you going to do about it? Technically, that's not my job, right? But I can't say that to a group of people in Grosse Pointe. They're going to say, well, if that ain't your job, then will you tell us what is your job? I mean, after all, you came here. You can't answer none of. You are a legislator. You are expected to understand everything about everything. If you're a mayor, and I'm in Detroit, and somebody says, Mayor, what are you going to do about this crime? I'm sick of these young fellas up and down the street, and I don't feel safe, and I can't walk my dog, and I can't go to the store. The mayor says, hold on, Chief, come here. Tell us what we're going to do about the crime. So the mayor appoints all these people who are department heads whose job it is to focus in on this particular issue. Right. That's why I love The Wire. When Carcetti became
you talking
mayor,
to a stranger to that, but go ahead.
So there was a white mayor who came behind a black mayor in Baltimore. It's a true story. And what he did, because he realized he was white amongst a sea of blacks. So he's trying to figure out, how do I govern? How do I make them do what I want them to do? How do I keep them from tanking my mayoral tenure? And so he says, look, he gets this fancy idea. He starts every morning walking through all the departments. So he runs through Park and Rec. And he says, there's a car over in that street need to be picked up. I need you to fix that swing, and I need you to get up that trash on that other park. And they're like, Mayor, as he's walking out, Mayor, tell what park are you talking about? What street is that car on? They didn't know. So they went and got every car off every street. They cleaned up every park. They picked the trash up out of every place that there was trash and dumping and all that sort of thing. He figured out a way to just get them. But the truth is, the reason you want to vote, do you know that when you're the president, you get handed a domestic and a foreign affairs agenda? You get handed two agendas. With Barack Obama, who I think is an excellent case of this, his foreign affairs agenda was to bring 7 countries who typically who do not mess with the International Monetary Fund. They don't do any business with them, the Jews. His job was to bring 7 countries into the IMF. That's the American president's job, to bring 7 countries that don't want to be into the IMF. How's that his job? Well, we could talk about that later, but that's the foreign affairs agenda he was handed. Tell me what those 7 countries are. And you know them. I'll give you a hint. It's the countries that they talk the most ugly stuff about on every media outlet. Iran, Syria, Afghanistan at the time, Iraq at the time, Cuba at the time. There's 2 others. They escaped me. They'll come. But he brought 5 of them. He got Cuba by diplomatic means. Oh man, we dogged y'all enough. It's time for y'all to come on back. We'll let our people start coming there. We'll give you some money and all. Just come on back, Cuba. You've been good about being put out. We went to war in the others. Sudan was another. We went to war in others and took them. And then they had to yield. See, when you go and destroy a country's infrastructure, they have to rebuild. They got to go get money. So they got to go to banks that will lend them money. Certain banks weren't going to lend them money because they knew who was behind the war. They knew if we put money in there, it'll happen again. So Obama accomplished his foreign affairs agenda.
Hey, man, Obama ain't do nothing, man.
Then there's that. That's the talk on the block. But, you got to look at what the agendas are. Forget who they're running.
Yeah.
What are the agendas?
Yeah.
And ask yourself, can this person that folks are asking me to support, can they get there? Now, look, I'm not saying the foreign or domestic agendas are the right agendas either.
Right.
I'm just saying there's an agenda that they get handed.
You got to execute.
So I believe, this is Bert Johnson's belief, I believe that Kamala Harris has already been called into a meeting. And I believe they have put a document in front of her and said, look, we're going to make you president. We're going to make you president because we can't have him again. 4 years of him without any guardrails. He doesn't have to worry about getting reelected. He's a lame duck. We can't control him. He's too volatile. There's a lot of unrest domestically.
And he in the bed with the wrong people.
With the wrong people. So I think there are people who we just don't want to have anymore. And I think they're saying, we'll make you president, but those 77 things on that page, can you get with them? Can you sign that and say you'll do them? And she looked at it and she said, yeah, I can do 63. I mean, we got to do 63. We got to do 63. All right. And I think she's already signed up. It's about the agendas. Because when you really think about it, who's running what? And when you can get to that answer, you can determine your way through it. And to put a black man or black woman in charge of it, who hasn't forgotten who they are, it's a good day dog.
And who has the intelligent base to handle it?
Did you hear her at the convention?
Yes.
Do you know there were 2 conversations happening at the convention? One was the rah-rah pep rally speechy stuff.
Yeah.
When you say cool words and all that, everybody, come on, USA, yes, she can. That's fun. That's the fun entertainment stuff. They're Beyonce's backstage.
Right.
But if you listen to her speech, you should listen to it again. If you listen to her speech, she was having a different conversation. She wasn't at a pep rally. Not in her mind. It was her opening argument in a case that she's going to make to the American people. And man, what a hell of an opening argument she
had. Yeah. I thought I was egging, I was going, okay, all right, give me a policy, right? And then she started leveling the policy. And because we was watching it together. And I was like, okay, we going somewhere. You know what I mean? But it's like you said, it's the importance of the conversation that we not get tied up in the ignorance, where the ignorance is all about these emotions, and those emotions make you go in there and then you make the wrong decision. And now, where you only had maybe one black judge in 2020, Biden comes through. Turns out, legislative, he might be the most coldest president legislative-wise. You're ignoring that because you're not reading and understanding, so you're forgetting all of that. We forget that.
Biden's problem is he got old, and his people don't tell his story well enough. One day we all just wake up and we just get old.
Yeah.
And I say that respectfully because I want to wake up and be old.
Yeah.
My grandmother is 94 years old.
Yeah, I need that.
She kicks it like she's 60. She dances. She keeps a social calendar. She's young. She's hip. She's all that. But one day my grandmother's just going to get old. It's going to happen it's just one day my grandmother's going to be old.
Yeah.
Right. It's not today, but one day.
All right.
Yeah,
I did that.
Biden just got old. I got a quick question.
Sure.
Heather, I'm interested in how you're feeling as a sister being represented at the top of the food chain in America's body politic. How does that make you feel? Like, what are your insights and what do you feel about just the notion. There's a sister running for president.
Absolutely. There's a certain amount of pride that goes with that. But the fact that she's intelligent, and the fact that she's had real, true, deep leadership roles, and the fact that that she's been able to move things and move people in a way that things may not have been moved before.
Yeah.
And so it sets and it affirms this role and this energy of where women are being placed in leadership. My contention with all of us that are moving up in leadership is that we still have work to do. Right. We still have inner work to do, because my philosophy is that we are doing amazing things, but if we're not doing it inward, and what we're pouring out is going to be a representation of what we are not doing inside. So in order to move it balanced, we need to have that balance in our relationships, intimate relationships. We need to have that balance in our families, because we're pushing out from that. We're pushing out from who we are and what we are as women. We're pushing that out, and that's moving with us. But again, if it's not balanced inside, it's going to be imbalanced when you send it out. So
now, Cal, the brothers got to ask ourselves: can Melania Trump make that? Can she make that statement that Heather just made?
Hell no.
It's impossible. It doesn't exist in Melania.
She don't want to make it.
She don't want to make it. More importantly, to know that our women, our sisters, our mothers, our aunts, our daughters, our nieces, to know that our grandmothers are now engaged in such an important discussion at such a high level, talking about, nobody running for president is talking about inner work. America has some inner work to do. Think about what you just said. You just did that because that's you. America does have this inner work to do.
we do.
Because otherwise we will espouse some things that we're going to be on the wrong side of history. Right? So it's really important. A sister is going to draw us back to the organizational days of Dr. King and John Lewis and El Hajj Malik El Shabazz and Fannie Lou Hamer and all of the warrior titan men and women who struggled for access and to get us set and straight. And, you know, no matter what you think about, I've heard young people talk about what they don't think so much about when it comes to Rosa Parks. Well, I mean, that's a mistake.
Okay.
That's a mistake. Because, see, when sisters get on the front line, it's a whole... Look, the lioness walks in front of the lion. She don't walk behind the lion. She walks in front of the lion with her chest up and out. She's hunting.
Because she know he there.
Because he's behind her. And she
know
he got her back. And it's a bunch of them in the pride.
Yeah.
So you can fool with her if you want to. Run up on her and see what happens.
Here we come.
And so from an animalistic standpoint, the idea that we're going to let some white, and I'm going to just say it the way it got to get said in the streets, some white boy talk about their sister. Nah.
Yeah. No, I ain't with
Not
that.
on my watch.
I ain't with it for nobody. You know what I mean? Like he's so
especially one of them.
Nah, yeah, it's
the way they
so. Brothers have a lot of people have bought into the disrespect against women, and women themselves have bought it. We have bought into such a disrespectful manner toward one another, and it's because of a lot of things. But you know, I always bring it back to fatherhood, right? That important. You know, when you first started out, you talked about how your daddy said you was out of that type of wisdom.
Yep.
It's not being imparted, and so a lot of these guys and girls who didn't have that type of wisdom, right? They're the ones that the internet gave them the microphone to speak. So hearing wisdom from
the elders, that mystic circle of really conscious and learning.
This is why we mentor.
No doubt.
This is why we have the mentoring program, and we have to pitch it to understand that no one mentors like we do.
Right.
And so we have to put that in perspective because the outcomes that we have. So she has outcomes already. She didn't come to the table by way of, you know, I'm just coming here to pretend and take all your money. Like, she didn't do that. She ain't sold one Bible. Yep. She has not sold one shoe. She ain't using her money for indictments.
Yep.
She didn't have to run to save herself from going to jail. So she's not had to do any of those things. And so I'm pushing this envelope toward destruction just so everybody could be rich. And to let the rich people know, hands down, when out the middle class or the lower classes, you don't get rich anyway.
No. And look, I'm going to say it the way I think people need to hear it. It's going to be a black woman that saves democracy. Y'all hear that?
Yeah.
It's going to be a black woman in the United States of America. Mark my words, we probably won't live long enough to hear the history books tell the truth about it. Who saved democracy. The opportunity for you to have a voice that doesn't get muted. You know, they've been playing a bunch of games where they mute people. And
well, they already shut Louisiana down. Like, you can't protest.
Come on. I mean, where they do that at?
And I get to I got to move and open up a whole nother city.
Exactly.
That was granted.
Exactly.
Right. And so on the other side of that, when you were talking about crime, and I'll tighten this up, right? When you were talking about crime, when do we? This is a great question for you. When do we? The cultures, the people, the neighborhoods, the gangs, the police. When do we make sure that our children and our people are safe versus how do I attack you or you attack me and all of this emotion? And, you know, a sister had said to me, I said, with a single household, she was trying to explain that, you know, well, not mine. I said, we're not talking about yours. We're just talking about overall the single household system and the dynamic for which you have now devalued your own son. Your son doesn't even know he's a seed carrier of life.
You never heard it.
Never heard
been told it.
And so he has to carry himself in a certain way so he can't be that lion behind the lioness. And we've been spitting and talking and listening to people who can't even write a paragraph on a piece of paper as someone that was knowledgeable because money has become their God.
I ain't read a book in 15 years.
In 15 years. Money has become your God. And so then what are you seeing out there? Now you notice you see the Asian hip hop artists. They spitting.
Yeah, they were at the Olympics. They called it breakdancing. I just at the risk of being completely out of line, it just looked crazy. But that's
so the little rap girl, she come out, she got gold teeth from her mom, she from Asia. So they put it in a dressing, and now bringing you the information in a different way. You don't hear the word bitch. You don't hear they bringing it to you from a literate perspective. This next wave of rappers they have knowledge. They read. They're writing books. They understand the marketing aspects where we're still talking about. I'm cool. I'm the what's the name? Pop. And well, you know, I got you in my sights because you've been eating this video games and
you're the ops.
You got the ops, right? And so. You're still using your words now, and I'm gonna say this, and we move on. But as a gifted black man, as a culture, that we are of people who have been creative, innovative, could speak. In other words, I can speak and manifest where you can't, and I don't value what's in me. And I say this to my mentees all the time, right? And it's important that our mentees and our young men know, as the seed carrier, you're responsible for success. You're responsible for success.
100%.
You're the seed carrier. You carry the seed of life. You're parenting right now through character and everything. Son, you're responsible for success. No matter what she trying to do, whatever the case may be, you are responsible for success because she can't be who she needs to be unless you're a man.
That's right. From a foundational standpoint.
Unless you're a man.
Unless you're a man, everything around you fails. Unless
you're a man. So, and I'm talking about a man.
Yeah, a man's man.
A man's man.
Rusty knuckles and all.
All that.
You know what I mean? The thing that I think is very important to understand about the voting, the conversation again about voting, is that what you are doing is you're organizing your thoughts with similar or like-minded people to put a new thought forward that ultimately works for your community. So voting is one of the few places that as an adult you can get away with being truly selfish. right? You're voting your interest. And when I ran around the state as a legislator, I met people from all walks of life, all corners of the state. But as I went to where they were from, I began to understand why it is they show up in the Capitol and fight for what they believe in, right? So when you go to Kevin Daly, Senator Kevin Daly's farm, Kevin, everything around him is named Daly something. So I asked him, I said, well, Kevin, how did the church, the school, the road, how did all this stuff get named Daly? He said, well, my dad was around, my grandfather, great-grandfather was around at the naming of the community and picking streets and all that kind of, he just kept raising his hand and he was there. And so, you know, you come to understand why he wants particular tax breaks around this kind of industry and why certain things need to be this certain way. And what it did for me, I can't speak for others who legislate and make laws. What it did for me was it sort of, remember when we were in shop or art class and you would take clay and it would dry, but they wanted you to score it so that when you set it down, it wouldn't slide. It kind of scored for me. It made plain for me the idea that, oh, what I'm supposed to do is come here and vote not just mine, but the people in my district's true interest. You do that 100% of the way. Got to insert what they believe, what they want, what they need in every discussion. You got to do it over and over and again, even if it means that, you know, folks say, Bert, we heard you the first time. Well, I just had to make sure. Did you hear me the last time? You got to say it again. Put it on paper. Say it out loud. Send an email. Leave a voicemail. Shoot a text. Put it on Facebook. But over and over and again, the agenda's got to go forward. That's how other organizations, that's what races are, organizations of people. That's what they do. The Jews will never. There's one issue in the United States Congress that is never going to be a political football. It is disallowed. There's only one issue. Everything else is up for debate. It is the Jewish state of Israel. They believe so deeply, they will stake their life on it, that if they don't have the Jewish state of Israel in existence and codified in the law and supported, that's why you hear all these people, they almost put you to it the moment you say you want to be a public official. Hey, what's your position on the Jewish state of Israel? And if you say something different than their agenda, you'll never get their support, ever. So that's the one issue. Do we have an issue? We don't even have an issue that nobody gets to goof around with. Everybody's split on our issue. You got white folks fighting for some of our issues deeper than some black folk. So,
because that unity was destroyed at the crib. Your boy Chris Rutherford say, amen, Bert Johnson, this is the age of the woman. If American democracy is saved, the black women will lead it.
Absolutely.
No question about it. Bert, tell everybody where they can meet you at, brother, where they can contact you.
They can always get me on LinkedIn. They can always get me, I'm still on Facebook, and my phone number's been the same 28 years, so they can still call me and text me. Having said that, I ain't hard to find. Politics is a place for us to make our decisions, to make our interests heard and felt. And that we ought to be extremely interested in because we can get so much back from it when we play the game properly.
Yeah, you got to get into the game. Miss Heather?
You can reach me at yourinspiredjourney.com, and you can always reach me by phone. Please call me. Don't DM me on social media. Call me at 313-759-7855. 313-759-7855.
That's awesome. You can reach me, Calvin Mann, at calvintman.com. It's always important, it's mentoring season is up, and on September the 8th, we're looking for boys 8 to 24. We got up to 30 spots, right? You're able to come in and get this work. The whole family gets to work. We don't just take the boy, we take in the whole family. So,
can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
I just want to thank you and Heather for the work you've done, for the work you're doing, the work you're going to do. The moment I met you, first, I saw you in a barbershop cutting hair, but you wasn't talking about haircutting. You wasn't talking about who's the GOAT and wasn't talking foolishness. You were talking about mentoring. You were talking about family. You're talking about young boys who need and deserve our help. And I just want to thank you for staying on message and standing in the gap for our people. It doesn't always go heralded properly, but there are those of us who see the work you all are doing. And we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Blessings. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. We got a full vision, and I want them all. I want the black ones, the white ones, the pink ones, the orange ones. I want them all. Mm-hmm. These boys are in trouble, and it's the adults. Yeah. Right. But I wanted to have this conversation, and we'll look for the next for next week to get the next person in as we continue to grow this podcast.
Book?
Thank you. The book. Bert, what book are you reading right now?
I'm rereading There's No Plan B for Your A Game.
That was a dope game. I shared that with him last week.
That book is cold.
That's a cold
book.
book.
Is cold. But something sent me right back simultaneously to read Never Split the Difference, which is a book on negotiations and whatnot.
Never Split the Difference. We got to get that.
Okay.
Never Split the Difference. That's the book. We continue the Reading is Life campaign where we're sharing a book at the end of our podcast. Say it again. Never split the difference.
Never split the difference, but absolutely there is no plan B for your A game.
Man, that's a hot book. When you sent that one to me, I done been in it, out it, back in it. Love that book.
We did that one together.
Yeah.
I love it.
So the one thing we want to make clear is, period, today, as you learned, reasons, places, understanding, why, but your vote counts.
Yes, it does.
I want that to be clear.
Yes, it does.
For those of you who are talking about your vote don't count, your vote count. You're just not participating, and you're allowing ignorance to prevent you from understanding what you can bring to your community, your life, your children's children, and further. I've been voting since I was 18. When I walked out of high school and was able to vote, I voted, right? And ever since then, I've been involved. I helped sign a bill with John Conyers, the juvenile diabetes bill. I've always kind of been involved in certain areas, but we vote, right? We go together, right?
As a family.
As a family, right? So we understand the importance of voting, right?
Yeah, when you don't vote, you bring to life that ugly saying that which you do for me, without me, you do to me. When you don't vote, you're saying, hey, whatever you do is cool.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's crazy talk.
Whatever you do is cool, right? But the other conversation that goes into that is that many people takes the philosophy, right? I recognized, people talk about what Malcolm X was talking about back then. It's 2024. A lot of stuff that he said back then, no question. Malcolm X, leader, all those guys, leaders. But them policies changed.
Yeah, they do.
They changed. Like when man, I gotta go.
Right, you do.
With that being said, thank you for watching.
Thank God for future episodes.
Right. Let me Put Your Family First podcast. We really appreciate you. Thanks for coming in, Bert. We're signing off. Don't forget the book, Never Split the Difference. With that being said, my name is Calvin T. Mann, president of Encourage Me, I'm Young. This has been Put Your Family First podcast. God bless you and encourage me, I'm young. Peace.